Today's vlog, we've got a few questions coming in. There's a lot of talk about India's maker going into the Boxing Day Test match, as well as Australia's, and Ashwin's retirement. We'll have a little chat about his career. Now, the first question is from Matu, and he's asked, the Boxing Day Test match just around the corner, will you see any changes for India in that particular Test match? And any more shock retirements as well. Well, I don't think you'll see any more shock retirements, but if I was the Indian selectors going into that next Test match, I'd be really thinking about dropping Rohit Sharma. The reason being is his form has not been up to scratch over the last year. He has not performed well in Australian conditions throughout his whole career as well. And the same is for South Africa, which is similar conditions. So he really struggles against the Kookaburra on these type of surfaces. Sometimes you have to make those big calls, and I think the time is right now, and have Bumrah captain the rest of the series. The other changes that I'd look at is maybe bring Washington Sundar into the fourth Test match out Melbourne. I thought he did extremely well in Perth. And if you're going to drop Rohit Sharma, you'd even keep Jadeja in there and use Sundar and Jadeja as that lower order just to finish off the innings and bat with Part. I might think about dropping Siraj, give him a little bit of rest, bring someone fresh in the bowling department, but I wouldn't play too much around with that. But yes, the big call for Rohit Sharma to be removed and bring in a younger batter and see if they can do a little bit better in Australian conditions. Sason Deep asks about Ashwin's career. What do I think about it? I think he's had a wonderful career. I love the way that he has worked at his game. He's improved it, he's changed it, and he's always trying to tinker with it, because it doesn't matter where you are in your international career, you're always looking to improve because the game is changing. And the way that he went about it, going over to England to work on how to bowl with the Duke ball, and also looking at other strategies to bowl in Australia with overspin, changing his technique to adjust to those conditions was exceptional. But Ashwin also with the bat played some real tough innings for India as well, saving Test matches, getting them into winning positions with the bat, not only with the ball, just showed his all-round ability. But what a wonderful, wonderful career. Congratulations to Ashwin on his retirement, and hopefully we see a lot more of him in the shorter format of the game, especially in the IPL. I think he's going to have a lot of success there now that he's back in Chennai. Muthu really getting stuck into Virat Kohli here. Will he overcome his ego and stop playing outside off stump? Look, I think that's a little bit too harsh on Virat Kohli, but he is trying to get on top of the Australian bowling attack. He is fending outside off stump to balls that he shouldn't be playing. And if you look at the stats here in Australia, you get through that first new ball, the first 15 overs, then it gets a little bit easier. But once you get around that 40 to 50 over mark, you can really capitalise and take full toll of a softer ball with no seam. So India have to change their tactic up front, especially Virat Kohli and the opening batsman, and look to leave the ball earlier on. Make Australia bowl to the stumps more rather than just outside off stumps, because at the moment it's easy pickings for the Australian bowlers, knowing that India is searching for the ball. You can't do that in Australia against the new ball. So Virat Kohli has to change his approach when he first comes to the wicket here in Australia. ZTL, you've asked, should Roz step down and give Bumrah the captaincy? Well, I basically alluded to that a little bit earlier. The Indian selectors really have to make a tough call on Rohit Sharma. His form has not been great over the last year. His performances in Australia aren't at the scratch, aren't up to international standards. So for me, I think there's a little bit of a burden there in the middle order. I've got to make a change, bring someone new in, and give Bumrah the captaincy for the rest of the series. I know it's a tough call, but sometimes must make these harsh decisions, especially when the series is on the line. Dr. Neeraj, after the result today in Brisbane, which team has the upper hand going into the next Test match? Well, I still think Australia have the upper hand. Both teams have their issues in their batting lineup, but I think the Australian bowling lineup with Boland coming in to replace Hazlewood is a good replacement. He's done so well out the MCG. He bowls those tight lines just like Hazlewood, so it's a lot like-for-like replacement, and I think the bowling attack of Australia is a little bit stronger at this stage than what the Indian bowling attack is. The Indians are still relying too much on Bumrah. Akashdeep was sensational in the Brisbane Test. He was very unlucky, but I'm just worried about Siraj's fitness and that third seamer for India. And I think that's where Australia have got the advantage. So when it comes to Melbourne, Australia should win that test match. Right, 45's just got on board as well to ask a question. I don't think he'll be following me after the comments a little bit earlier about the Indian captain. But he's asked a big blow from Travis Head there. Will Australia be able to fill the void there? Well, I don't think so. If Travis Head is out of the next test match, which I don't think he will be, but we don't know. We've got to wait and see. But if he was to be out of that test match, it would be a huge blow because he's the one that turns the game around. He really gets on top of the opposition attack. He's very hard to bowl to, and the scoreboard is always ticking over. And as we saw in the second innings in Brisbane, when Australia were trying to get quick runs, the other batsmen weren't able to play that aggressive game. They weren't able to take on that Indian attack. So there are a few holes there. Who would they bring in to replace Travis Head? And I think it would be Inglis, the West Australian keeper, to come in and fill that void. And he's a player that can change the tempo of the game as well. So he's a like-for-like replacement in some regard, but he doesn't really have the quality and the experience of Travis Head. So if Travis Head is missing the next test match, it will be a huge blow, and that would be advantage to India to finish off the series well. Savish asks, do you think rain saved Australia from a second innings collapse? No, I don't think so, but I was a little bit concerned with the top four, with the way that they were going about trying to put runs on the board quickly. They looked a little bit indecisive. Some of those batsmen were out of form. They're still searching for that form. So they were in two minds whether to go for that aggressive stroke or play defensively. So they didn't really play with any intent. But for me, it wasn't the rain. Australia were looking to declare at some stage and try and give the test match a chance to get a result and entertain the fans. And I think that's the way that test cricket should be played. And yeah, they had 50 overs. 250 would have been enough on the board with that chase, with the way that the wicket was moving around with the new ball. And it was still overcast conditions, and the Australians would have been able to expose that quite well throughout the innings as well. Good question, but I like it that you're getting stuck in the Aussies. Pravan asks, what can India do in the first innings to improve their batting? Well, I alluded to it a little bit earlier in a question that I answered, and that's simply just try and bat a little bit more conservatively in the first 10 to 15 overs. The kookaburra is harder, the seam is hard, there's a little bit of seam, but also movement in the air as well. The Australians are trying to get the Indian batsmen to play away from their body outside off stump. They're chasing it and are giving easy catches to the slips cordon, and they've got to change that. They've got to make Australia bowl to the stumps, because when that ball gets a little bit softer as the innings goes on, it gets easy to bat. And around about the 40 to 50 over mark, it's easy to score runs. The ball's coming on and there's no movement off the pitch. And then once you settle down and the bowlers are a little bit tired and that second new ball comes into play, you can attack that a little bit more than when the bowlers were fresh in that first spell. So that's how India can change their approach for the rest of the series in the first innings. Rightio guys, thanks very much for joining me. Get your comments downstairs. I've made my opinion. I like to hear your opinion as well. And if it's different to mine, that's even better, because I like a bit of a discussion.